ECU's American Conference title hopes are still alive, and they're going to put them on the line against UTSA. And while that may not seem like a big deal going against a 5-5 team, when you look at what UTSA has done at home, this is a terrifying game for the Pirates. They're still, like I said, in contention for that conference title. But if you ask Tulane, beating UTSA at home is going to present plenty of challenges. That place is going to be rocking. That is a fan base that is still very much invested in its team, and beating a team like ECU and ruining their title hopes is going to be something that fan base would enjoy so much. This is a very different UTSA team at home than they are away from the Alamo Dome. That is going to be fun to watch. ECU, there's a lot of pressure on them. The spotlight is on them, and it's very bright. How do they navigate this tough test? How do they navigate a tough challenge, which is a UTSA team that almost has superpowers at home? Jeff Traylor may not be in those coaching candidate conversations anymore, but there's one thing he can do, which is win at home. This team is very different to beat on the road. If you're ECU, that's going to be a big time challenge to keep your potential title hopes alive. Now, if you're ECU, you've looked much different in recent weeks. The offense has found its footing, and you've seen them score at a pretty impressive clip. They beat Memphis 31-27 this past week to keep those title hopes alive, and they have 2 road trips keeping them from being in the title conversation in the title game. They scored 48 against Charlotte, 45 against Temple, 41 against Tulsa. So this offense is finding its footing at the right time. And Caden Hauser deserves a lot of credit for his success so far this year. Hauser has completed 66% of his passes, over 2,800 yards, 15 touchdowns to just 5 interceptions. And last week was just a gritty performance by this team. Now, we talked about the rushing attack. We talked about what it's capable of doing, and it's a deep group. London Montgomery has been the leader with 637 yards and 7 touchdowns. Marlon Gunn is a big body that they brought in time and time again, and he's picked up big yards in big moments. TJ Engelman's a young player that they're excited about for his future. He's just in a very deep running back room. And then Parker Jenkins at times as well. When people kind of forget about him is when he's had his biggest impact. Caden Hauser's also been a part of the rushing attack. He already has 7 touchdowns on a year that tied to tie with London Montgomery for the lead. And he has been a nice threat for this rushing attack, especially when things aren't going to plan. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to watch in this game. How does UTSA slow down that rushing attack, and how do they get them in a position where they're disruptive and forcing ECU into uncomfortable situations? Now, the passing attack has been great for ECU. Anthony Smith and Yannick Smith have played to their potential, and that's been a big reason why they've been successful. Brock Spalding has stepped up in a big way as well. Desirio Riles at tight end and Javante Connor have also played a role. That's a deep group. And this is an offense that does not rely on one player at the running back room or in the rushing attack, in the passing attack. They know they have depth. And that's probably the biggest thing for this group and the scariest thing about them. Slowing this team down isn't going to be easy because you can't just single out one guy. You can't just say Anthony Smith is who we're going to take away. Now, you can find ways to slow them down, but you can't pick out one guy and say, we're only going to focus on him. That's going to be a problem for any team that faces ECU. Now, for the Pirates, the big thing is going to be, how do you slow down UTSA's offense? Because this is a defense for ECU that has stepped up in a big way. They've been disruptive. They've had multiple guys play big in big moments. But playing on the road against UTSA, where again, that UTSA team at home is a much different team. That offense is a much different team. That's crazy what they've been able to do. And the Tulane game was a perfect example of that. It was a game in which a lot of people expected Tulane to be able to take care of business, and UTSA ran them out of town. That was a very surprising performance. But when you look at what UTSA has done, they do not lose very often at home, especially under Jeff Traylor. been a crazy run for them, and this is going to be a huge test for ECU. How do you get pressure on that offense? How do you get Owen McCown in a position where he's not comfortable? That's going to be a big question. And for their own offense, how do you deal with the crowd noise? How do you deal with a team that plays so much more confidently at home? How do you deal with that? Because your title hopes are on the live, and you're going to have a lot of pressure. The spotlight, like I said, is going to be on you. UTSA has nothing to lose in this game, and that's what makes them so dangerous. Now, Owen McCown has had his ups and downs this year. He has been consistent at times and inconsistent in others. Over 2,100 yards, 20 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Robert Henry Jr. has been the spotlight player the entire season. He's still averaging 7.1 yards per carry. He leads the team with 9 touchdowns and 983 yards. Will Henderson III, though, has been a nice little piece for them as well. Kind of flies under the radar because most people are focused on Robert Henry. 86 carries for him, 603 yards. He's also averaging 7 yards per carry with 4 touchdowns. The passing attack has been diverse. Devin McEwen leads the team with 567 yards and 7 touchdowns. AJ Wilson has been solid. He's averaging 19.5 yards per catch. David Amador, tight end Houston Thomas. They have guys that can play a huge role. And Owen McCown feels comfortable knowing he has those guys available. They are going against an ECU secondary that is disruptive, that has shown that it can create turnovers and make things difficult for the teams they're playing. That's going to be a big question that I have for this team going forward. How are you able to consistently be with your offense? Because this ECU team, even though they're coming into UTSA's turf, how do you consistently play that way? Can you keep that magic at home and just play almost numb? Like just continue doing what you're doing at home. UTSA is a good team still, and the record, I don't think, indicates how good they actually are. The biggest question I have for UTSA is, can their defense step up? Can their defense slow down this ECU offense? That is a big question. I don't necessarily know what the answer is to that question because we've seen what ECU can do, and turnovers are going to be the biggest way. You look at the Tulane game, essentially just do what you did in the Tulane game. You can essentially do the same thing. Now, the problem is that Caden Hauser is a much better passer than any quarterback on Tulane's roster. So you can't necessarily do the exact same thing, but take that formula and adapt it to this ECU game plan. That is going to be the biggest way, I think, that ECU is going to struggle if UTSA can find a way to do that. Now, ECU is a 3-point favorite, and honestly, I'm surprised that UTSA is not favored. We'll see what this line looks like going forward. I am going to pick ECU to keep their title hopes alive. I think that UTSA is going to give them a lot of trouble, but I do trust ECU, especially with how they've been playing recently. They just can't have a hangover game, because if they do, UTSA is going to win this one by a lot. If they struggle because they're just so excited that they beat Memphis, they're not going to be in the title conversation anymore. And UTSA has a big opportunity to ruin that for them. They almost ruined it for Tulane, and now they have a chance to actually do it against ECU. But I am going to pick the Pirates to hang on in this one, find a way to win, and be in that title conversation for the last game of the season as well.